Right, so I wanted to start out by playing something because honestly, I haven't played until 2 weeks ago. I had not played live for about 6 years, and since before COVID. And playing live, I mean, I do videos and stuff, but that's different. Playing live is a different animal, and um, it requires, a much higher degree of knowing what you're doing and having muscle memory developed so that you know what comes next. Because when you're playing, and I'm sure you guys know this as your players too, when you play, your mind, it's just the nature of the mind. The mind will go and dart around. Sometimes you can't focus all the time on what you're doing. And when your mind, doesn't go where you want it to, your body has to carry through without screwing up, kind of knowing what the next part's going to be. So anyway, I actually found, I said yes to this little live local performance, and that meant that I actually had to play. So I started to practice for the first time in 6 years, and played for a month. And I'd say I'm like 80% back. It's enough to play and to enjoy it at least. And so I played this little thing, and I thought, okay, well, the curse of being the the guy who's instructional is, of course, you're not playing all the time. I don't play a lot live, and if you don't play live, you don't maintain your skills very well. So mine are always going up and down. I practice, I get it back, and then I lose it because I get busy with other things. And so this was a long period of not playing well, and it took longer even to get it back than I thought it would. And it's still not all the way back, but I want to keep moving forward on this and keep doing things that keep me playing. And so playing at a live stream makes sense. So anyway, I did decide to do one thing here today, and it's this bit of this Beethoven piano sonata that I did. I did this in the early 90s. I did the whole movement. Now I've edited it down for today's shorter attention spans. And it's just a short thing, but it's fun to play. And so I thought, well, that's the thing I'm going to play here. So I'm going to give it a shot and see how it goes. And this is the newest guitar that I've got. This guitar was given to me to do as a review. And I'll just say this about it. It is $169 retail. And after setup, it plays really well. The only issue with it, I did a video on it, and the only problem that I'm having with it is that it doesn't stay in tune all that great. It's got this Floyd, version, and I'm thinking I'll probably take it off and put on another, like a higher end Floyd on it. And if this thing stays in tune, well, then it's going to be an awesome guitar, and it's amazingly inexpensive, which just kind of blows my mind. But anyway, enough about that. I'm going to play a tune. Wish me luck. All right, got the hard part out of the way. So, I was a little worried about that because last week I damaged my thumb and I'm playing doing this high intensity interval training CrossFit kind of thing. And, you know, I like trying to stay fit and I haven't done enough of it, but unfortunately I was doing this one particular station where you do this exercise and you jump down on the floor and you do a plank and you jump back and you go up, come back down. And when I hit the mat, I heard a loud pop and my thumb collapsed and it's swollen and I think a ligament or a tendon or something, I damaged it. So I'm wearing the brace to help, but what I've noticed is that if I try to play, I like to play with power and, sometimes intensity and strength. And right now, if I do that, it hurts like hell. So I have to like play everything lightly and, but I can still kind of get through it. So, all right. Sound is far. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I've got a mic in the room and I've just got the set it up live and the mic's not that great. So I'm gonna have to figure out a better solution to do more of this in the future. But this is a test, I just wanted to play something and, anyway. So that's, like I said, that's this piece that I like playing, Beethoven. To me, he's my favorite composer. He is like the original heavy metal guy, and the only thing that he didn't have was an electric guitar, but his music is intense, dark. I mean, he has a wide range, of course. He can do anything, did anything. But when he gets dark and intense, it's like right there, and I connect with him. So I love that kind of stuff. And of course, it's a great challenge, technically challenging. And that, as guitar players, if you want to get better, that's what you need. You need some kind of challenge. And so I wrote down a few notes here, what I wanted to talk about. Oh, speaking of that challenge, in an hour and 50 minutes, I'm going to be doing my first live masterclass, and that's going to be on Zoom. It's through, let's see here, I'm going to put a link in there in just a minute. But the masterclass is called The Art of Picking. I have never really gone into detail about my technique, angles, and those sorts of things, because it wasn't my goal. Like back all the way with the original Speed Mechanics for lead guitar, I showed a process. And I knew that everybody, lots of different players pick slightly differently with different angles. And I saw that. So I didn't go in there and say, do it like this, or, here's how I do it. This is the right way to do it. I said, hey, these are the principles that you can develop your technique with. And this is what you want to be able to accomplish. And here's a process to show you how to do it. Now, I didn't explain the process in the first Speed Mechanics for lead guitar book. I just applied the process. And so if you go through it, you'll get it. It'll improve things. And it's kind of the process that I invented, more or less, based on what I saw working for me and students that I had at the time. And, some people could go through that book and kind of read between the lines and see the process, at least aspects of the process. But what I didn't do is I didn't show all those details. Now in this masterclass, that's one of the things I'm going to do. I'm going to talk about the overview and what the processes are. There's basically two overall processes, and they're different approaches, and they work together. You need both of them. And the speed mechanics approach is kind of a breakdown into different pieces of the elements of a skill set, because the guitar, especially playing well, it's not a skill. It's a collection of skills that all come together. And if you use what I call the head-on approach, which is the tried and true, okay, let's just slow it down, let's get it right, let's gradually speed it up, you need that, and that's how you build your base. But that's not going to give you high speed control, because what happens is at high speed, they are different motions. So I use the analogy of walking and running. You got to walk before you can run. Okay, so you got to build your base. You got to build your slow, moderate speed, and picking, cross string, picking, all that good stuff. You need that. But then the problem is, if that's all you do, you're never going to get there, really. It's going to be very difficult. Because you're creating your own barriers. And I'll explain why that happens in this masterclass. But you need that. But then you need what I call the speed mechanics approach, which is this approach where we take an idea and we break it apart, simplify all the elements of technique except one, and develop that element. Then you can do it fast. And once you're doing it fast, you're practicing the right motion. Like I said, you got to walk before you can run. But you know what? If you practice walking, you get good at walking. Even if you're doing a fast walk, it's a different thing than running. And you can practice fast walking your whole life. It's never going to give you good form as a runner. Okay, you need to practice running to run. And of course, the bottom-up approach, that's what I call that. Head on. You learn something, you break it down, you slow it down, you speed it up. As that tempo goes from the low end, the bottom, up, you run into these brick walls because you're walking and you're trying to run using a walking technique. So speed mechanics turns that whole thing around, and we say, okay, let's look at these elements. And I did break it apart in the original speed mechanics for lead guitar to a degree. I broke it apart more in total picking control, into a lot more finer detail, and I'm going into way more detail in this masterclass. So it starts, like I said, it's an hour and 45 minutes from now. It's good. I created a 12-page PDF of like the overview and the explanation, which I'll talk through, and then I'll demonstrate, and I will expound on it. Because even if you get the high-level principles, if you don't also understand the application where the rubber meets the road, you could know the principle but apply it wrongly, in the wrong way or at the wrong level, or and that's what a coach does. A coach says, no, here's where you are, and this is what's relevant and important to do right now to get to this next stage, to get to this next level. What happens 4 stages down the road doesn't matter that much, really. What matters right now on a practical level is what you get right now to get to the next stage. But of course, you need somebody who's been there and knows all the stages to say where you are and how to get through them. So that's what this masterclass is. I'm going to throw a link into the live stream. I should have pulled this thing up, I suppose, but I'll get it in a second. Okay, here we go. Copy. And here it is. So anyway, that's the sign up link. If you can't make it, you can still sign up and you'll get the PDF. You'll get the Guitar Pro notation files, because I've showed how I've taken a particular, in fact, it's out of this piece, this Beethoven piece. I just took a run and then start breaking it apart and show you how to build it up piece by piece. And so there's a 3-page Guitar Pro file. There's the notation of that as a PDF, and then there's this 12-page PDF, and you'll be able to watch the video of the thing. So it'll be a real masterclass. Like, I have in mind to take a person, we'll pick somebody, and then they'll play something. They'll try to play it, and we'll kind of troubleshoot it, and we'll look at, okay, well, Where are you in regard to these principles, and what's the important thing to focus on? So I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I've always liked doing master classes live, in person, and I haven't done one for a long time, but um, well, 6 years actually. So I'm going to do it here. I'm going to start doing it online, and I'm thinking right now it's just a one-off to $5 to sign up and get in this thing. But after we do it, I'm thinking I'll probably make it a monthly master class because there's so much to cover. And I don't even know we're going to get through all these 12 pages. We'll probably just get through a few of them and then, whatever. If we get halfway, that's great. It's more important to get the points and make sure that you understand how to apply current steps and next steps than it is to get through it, So we're going to do whatever it takes to get through it. And then we'll keep building it, probably keep doing it every month for, I don't know, maybe a year. I don't know. But that's how long it takes to really nail down all this stuff and really master these techniques and iron out the glitches, Okay, so enough about that. One more thing I want to mention is the fretboard mastery. Fretboard mapping system. That's a new course that is at tsmusicacademy.com. And what it is, it's huge, okay? And the whole thing isn't up yet, but a lot of it is. And it's something that you work at over time because it's about learning the fretboard. Well, it's not learning the fretboard maybe the way people often think of learning the fretboard, because learning dots on the fretboard, learning your patterns, is not really learning the fretboard. You have to connect your ear to the patterns. So it's ear training and understanding the musical structures. Once you get that, it simplifies the fretboard, because the fretboard is this complex expression of musical structure. And the reason for that is because of the tuning, and it's a chromatic instrument. And, you don't just have, one scale with one pattern. You have one scale with dozens of patterns. It's like, well, how do I do all that? And then how do I see all these other patterns? Well, here's the problem. I'll just say it in a nutshell. The problem is that people approach the fretboard from the dot pattern perspective. And that works. Here's the problem with that, is it actually works mechanically. You put your finger in the right place and you play the note. Great. But usually we're so concerned with getting the patterns down and running through these scales and playing fast that we don't get our ear connected with those patterns to the point that we don't know what each note sounds like. And if you don't know what the note's going to sound like that you're going to play, then you're playing bad notes. On the other hand, when you get the connection, the idea in your mind, I want to play this melody, and it happens spontaneously, you improvise, it comes out on the guitar the way you hear it. You don't hear wrong notes, do you? What I think the experience of most of us is, to some degree, is you start playing in a scale and some of it sounds pretty good, and then you hit a note and it's like, oh, that didn't work. That's not what I wanted. Well, that's because your ear is not connected to the fretboard. If it was, you would have heard the note you wanted and played the note you wanted. So anyway, it's a big task, honestly, to master the fretboard to that degree. And the better you get at it, the better everything gets. The better you get for composition, the better more clear your ideas get, the faster you get to your ideas, and even to the point where you can improvise and get them spontaneously. You don't stumble anymore. You don't play wrong notes. You know the entire fretboard, and you know it, not just, hey, harmonic minor, you can play Yngwie runs. Well, that's great, but all the different options, all the scales, and all the contexts. When people ask me things like, I want to know what scale to play over this chord, that is that's a red flag to me. And it says, hey, this guy's thinking in terms of patterns. He's thinking, what pattern do I use over a pattern? That's not how it works, though, if you get your ear connected to the fretboard. You don't ask the question of what pattern do I use. What you ask is, what do I hear? And what does it look like? If I play what I hear, it sounds great. That includes patterns, yes, but it's fusing pattern with sound and getting to know those. And that is a process that I put together. A lot of people will ask, is that like the Fretboard Mastery book? Well, it's different, but it does kind of cover some of the same ground. It's a little bit more targeted toward step-by-step application. It's more practical. Fretboard Mastery kind of put all this information, theory, and ear training in a structured academic structure more. You know, I mean, there's application, but it's not the same. So this is a lot of backing tracks, a lot of, you know, we get to know the neck. We're going to play, you know, all the inversions of all the chord triads and how they look and be able to jump from one to another. Then we're going to look at 2 chord progressions, and then we're going to look at 3 chord progressions, and we're going to look at decorating chords, and that whole thing. We just keep building it. So it's very cool. I'm pretty stoked about it. And so anyway, happy to share it. And I'm trying to keep it cheap, affordable and everything, and you know, just getting it out there. So those are the 2 things. Live masterclass coming up today in a little while, and then the fretboard mapping system. That's a course at TS Music Academy, and it's available, you know, on demand. So all right, well, those are my announcements. I'm thinking for sound, what I really got to do is, I think, just get a separate mixing board in here. You can't, in my view, you can't do it all. The mixing board that is the DAW in and out, you can't at the same time set up, it's like trying to set up a monitor mix. The ideal way to do a monitor mix, you see this at all of the bigger shows, is there's a monitor mix guy on the side of the stage with his own board, and he mixes the monitors, you know, instead of trying to do it all from one. And so that's what I'm thinking I'll probably do, is I'll probably set up in here and mic stuff and send it to a sub-mixing board, and then send that in so I can get that directly in, and it'll have a much better sound, but one thing at a time. All right, guys, let's see. Let's see what comments. We go some questions and answers, whatever you guys want to talk about. Okay. Mike Neal. Hey, Troy. Hey, Mike. Cool. All right. Volume is fine. Fine. The glove on the left hand. Yeah, that's, man, when this happened, it hurt like hell. It was, I thought, you know, I thought this was going to be another block, and, you know, I was like, you know what? I promised I'm going to play. Damn it, I'm going to play. I don't care. So should have taken some more ibuprofen, I think, but inconsistent volume. Yeah. Okay. Somebody can't hear. Neither can I. Huh. Trap the notes. Yeah. Very quiet now. Huh. That's really weird. Drums highly distorted. Okay. Well, guess I got to fix it. Greg Gaz is asking, hour and 50 minutes. I think you're talking about the master class. Yeah, it's, well, it starts at noon U.S. Mountain Time. Right now, or for me, it's almost 10:30. So it's about an hour and a half. And it's Zoom, but you have to register. When you register in the class, the link, you get a you get a Zoom link, and then you get in there. E-flat tuning, yes, I like E-flat tuning. You know, I don't like to have to wrestle with the strings. You know, I mean, sure, you can play on 10s and standard tuning if you really want to rip the hell out of your fingers. And, you know, I mean, I've done it, but, you know, I guess it depends. The lighter strings do require a somewhat lighter technique. You know, you have to, you know, if you iron grip your pick, which we're going to talk about stuff like this in the master class, then it's going to really mess things up. And yeah, let's see here. Let's keep going. How many hours do you think is the best for practicing? I think that depends on you. But when I was learning, I would play 2 hours, 4 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours some days. Um, you know, you want to dig in on the practice time. I like to separate practice time in terms of breaking new ground versus um, cementing the mechanics well, so that they're all totally subconscious, and they just happen. You don't have to think about them. That happens when you do performance stuff. So ideally, you play with a band, you do your rehearsals, you do your live shows. That keeps you playing, but of course, that just reinforces what you already do. You have to break new ground as well, and so it's good to be hitting both those areas. And I think that probably 60 to 90-minute focused periods, and then a little break, and then another 60 to 90-minute period. It's probably more ideal to hit it multiple times with little breaks. I've always been the kind of person who, like, I'll just go, I'll just, sit down, and I won't eat, I won't do anything. And that's really not the best. I've learned that I sometimes I'll put an alarm on. Half the time I'll just turn it off and keep going, because I'm like, hey, it's working and I'm still into it. But it depends on you, and it depends on your inspiration. It depends on how much are you into it. I'm big on inspiration. Use the inspiration that's there. There's a point where you need some discipline. The discipline says, hey, I don't feel like playing. Discipline says, no, I'm going to sit down and play for 10 minutes, whether I want to or not. And because you got 10 minutes, maybe that's all you have. Well, you're only going to get 10 minutes of value out of the next 10 minutes. So go ahead and take it. Stick to your schedule. That's where discipline comes in. If you do that, often you'll find that things start working, and you start becoming more interested in it. And it becomes more and more of a passion. Overall, that's the same thing that happened to me when I started playing guitar when I was 12 or whatever. I wasn't like, oh my God, this is what I want to do with my life. I wasn't like that. I was like, this is cool. I like the music, and I want to be able to do that. I'm interested in the music. And so I started playing. And over time, I got better and better and got more interested. And the better you get, the more fun it gets and the more inspired you get. And, it just, one thing led to another, and, got the opportunity. I did these books. And so I started playing more, and then the level of music keeps rising, and it's this cool journey. So anyway, let's keep going here. Questions. Is the fretboard mapping system an advanced version of fretboard mastery? It's a different approach. It's more practical. It's more like, okay, here's a piece that you need to do this, and here's how you apply that piece. Let's apply it, and here's how you apply it. Get good at this, and then let's do another piece and another piece. And in the end, it kind of covers the same territory, but it covers it in a different way. And I think it's probably a more effective way. It's a better way. It's like the difference. Total picking control versus the original speed mechanics. Total picking control is a huge course with lots of application, fine-tuning things. Speed mechanics kind of gets the gist of the ideas out, and here's some application, but it's exercise intensive. The other's musical intensive. This course is more music, more improvisational. The fretboard mapping system is more improvisational. Volume is fine now. Yeah, there's, trying to figure out, I'm on a Mac, and trying to figure out how to get volume. I think on Windows, there's a lot of volume controls that automatically adjust or compress and keep things regular. And here I don't seem to have that. And I think that is something I got to learn more about how to do that. 2 weeks. Okay, I fell off my index finger in the beginning of the year. I fell on my index finger. This is a comment from Lunatic. All right, took me 7 months until it was fine. Hope your thumb heals faster. Thank you. I hope so too. But the fact that I can play is good, a good sign. Yeah, so it'll get there. What tuning for today's master class? Yeah, I'm thinking I'll do standard. I'll do well, I guess maybe we'll put it up to a vote. You know, so if people are in standard, I'll do standard. I have a guitar standard tuning and one in slap tuning. So I'm thinking probably standard tuning. Started learning guitar with your Rock Rhythm CD. Hooked ever since. Thank you. I'm glad you like it. That's awesome. I hear a lot of people that said, you know, these things really helped them, and of course that's cool. I do appreciate knowing that. So I never get tired of that. I missed the beginning. Will fretboard mapping course help in songwriting? Well, fretboard mapping will help get ideas. It'll clarify ideas in your head. You'll know where to find them. You'll know what they look like. So when you hear a lick, or if you imagine a riff. Hey, you know, you hear something, I like this groove, and then you think about that groove and you imagine a riff. You hear an idea, you'll know how to play it. And the faster you can get there, you know, what happens, most of us, I think, and most people that are trying early in the process that don't have a good connection of their mind to the fretboard, their inner ear to the fretboard, what they do is they're like, oh, I have an idea, and it, you know, kind of like this. And then, oh, wait a minute. Should it be this note or that note? And then they get lost. They go down this rabbit hole and they forget the idea, you know, because it doesn't come out fast enough. If it comes out super fast, you can sort of stay in that creative place and you never leave it. You just improvise songs. And that's, you know, when I was writing with Second Soul, a lot of times that's what I do. I have a riff, we just start playing, and I would improvise the B section and the C section of the song. I'd improvise what the chorus is going to be and what the bridge is going to be, just because of how it felt like it would need contrast, or I wanted to move to a different kind of a part. And it would just happen spontaneously. And so the answer is yes, it will, but it's not a songwriting course specifically. It's just your ideas onto the guitar. Okay, the drunken guitarist. Okay. Hi, Troy. I've been playing for over 30 years. I started with your book, Heavy Metal Lead Guitar, learned Mystic Places, etc. 30 years later, I still can't play fast. I'm accurate but slow. Masterclass, art of practice. I call it the art of picking, but what it really is, it's the art of practice applied to picking. And I think after we dig through this, you know, usually people are most slowed down, like when they get to the barrier, I can't play any faster. Usually that's a picking issue. You know, that is the big brick wall. And after we apply this in the the master class, and you start to break through that barrier, well, then as you get to these higher speeds, you also have to break it left hand, right hand. And so that's where it's going to ultimately go. So it's called the art of picking technique, and that's where we're starting, but it's really the art of practice, and it'll eventually cover it all. So that's what I'd say. Hi, Troy. Do you warm up before play, or you just start playing slow, the real song, and get serious slowly? Well, it depends. What I've noticed is that if I'm really playing well, I can pretty much hit everything cold, and you know, it's there. And unfortunately, right now, I'm not at 100%. I'm at, like I said, maybe 80%, because I hadn't played for 6 years in a real serious way, or an ongoing way, and a lot of stuff erodes, you know, and so there's a lot of slop that I notice, you know, kind of screwed up a few things in the tune I just played, actually. And so I need right now, with where my technique is now, I need to play for a while to get my fingers to move. The longer, the better it is, the less. But there's always going to be a little ebb and flow. Like wherever I am, cold, it gets a little better, and as you get warmed up and everything, and that'll always be true. I guess what I'm saying is that if my cold ability is equal to what I'm playing, well, then I can just have fun, and that's kind of my ideal level, and I'm not there right now. If I keep doing this, I will be, though, in another, I don't know, month or two. It's nice to be able to play. It's fun to be able to play again, let me tell you that. So I'm going to try not to let it go. I'm going to try to use these, live stream or these other things as vehicles to keep playing when I don't have actual events to play. And what exactly it is, for me, how exactly warm-up works. Warm-up really isn't what you play, it's how you play it. It's that you play it easily. So I've noticed two different things. I can just put on a song and kind of like try to hang to it, and it's a little bit of a struggle if you're not warmed up and it's a little clunky. That's one way to get your hands busted into moving, but it depends. If it's too high of a challenge and you're just not close enough, your hands just lock up, and that's not helpful. So if you're close enough, it can work. But if you're not, what you really need to do is just play soft and quietly and easily, get your hand reacquainted, move slowly, maybe even put on a click and play the thing at 3/4 speed or something for a while, especially if it's really difficult stuff. That's probably what I should have done with this piece, but whatever. It is what it is. Standard or detuning? Standard. If we're talking about the masterclass, I'm thinking standard is where I'm going. On a Mac, you control the volume and such from the MIDI app. It's the Apple version of Windows volume control. There is a slider, but it doesn't have an automated function that says, hey, if I'm talking and it's quiet, raise it. If I'm playing music and it's louder, quiet it down. I guess I could grab, it's just another thing to have to do, grab this slider and move it around. Doroteo Garcia, I'm currently enrolled in the fretboard mapping and rhythm course. Missing lead 1 and 2. Yeah, well, hey, I'm only one person. It takes, you guys, it takes a lot of time. I've been working on the stuff at the Music Academy all year, and it's been my primary focus. And, there's this heavy rhythm guitar course, there's full curriculum there, and it's not even completed. I'm still putting stuff up, and there's a lot to do, and the mapping course is going to continue. So right now I've got to be doing a video of each of those to keep all that going, and then there's the infrastructure stuff, and thankfully I do have I have help of a person, one person, Kevin, right now. Thank you, Kevin. And and we're getting there, and it is on the, it's coming, it's coming. In the fretboard mapping, there's a bullet point about all musical structure shapes plus how they integrate with one another. What is a musical structure? A musical structure is an interval, a dyad, a triad, a seventh chord. So what's the musical structure of a major triad? Well, it's from a note, a root note, it's up 4 half steps to the major third, and then it's up 3 more half steps to the 5th. So those are up to the 3rd. That's a structure, a musical structure of an interval called a third. It's a major third. It's 4 frets. 3 frets is a minor third. So that's a musical structure, and it's also the component of harmony. All chords are created from harmony, and a third is the unit of harmony. So you add a third, and then you put another third on top of the other third. Another way to look at thirds is that you just take a diatonic scale and you take a note, and you go up the scale and you skip a note and you go to the next note. Well, that note from one note up to more, that's an interval of a third. And that's the foundation of everything. And that's where fretboard mapping really starts to dig into. I've never been big on saying, hey, let's learn the major scale, because music fundamentally uses the major scale. I've always been like, well, in rock, we are more attuned to the minor scale, minor or mixolydian or, whatever. And so that's a little more useful. But here's the thing. Our ears have learned intuitively what the major scale sounds like, because we've grown up with music and heard thousands and thousands of songs, melodies, and there's this natural sensibility about how music moves, and that creates our expectations, what sounds natural and what sounds twisted or unnatural. And we can follow the rules and make it vanilla, plain and natural, or we can grab these more interesting notes. But you can't grab the interesting notes, that's breaking the rules, until you know what the rules are. So we do start with the major scale, and then we show the parallel and the relative minor, and then you have a broader understanding, because with this understanding you'll be able to understand everything you hear, all musical styles, and that's a much bigger, I know it's a bigger goal, but why not? That's where I went, and I wanted to understand how everything worked. And so basically I'm showing you how to get there. Let's jump to a couple more. Oh, we still got 15 minutes. Good. Let's see, what's next? Need cookies. I like cookies. Got one waiting for me here. I just bought it yesterday. Love it. Thank you, Troy. I have 6 of your books and I'm learning the rhythm too. Cool. Keep progressing. You've got to be into what you're doing. And then, a lot of people think, okay, I want to play these songs, but, and this is part of this whole speed mechanics approach that goes all the way back to the master class. You're not learning songs. The head-on approach to learning, that's just the traditional approach, is you take a musical passage and it's a sequence of notes, and you learn the sequence of notes, and then you try to play it. Maybe it's a run, it's a lick, it's a riff. And the problem, of course, is that early on, maybe it's too high for your skill set. You don't have the skills to do it well. So it's a challenge and you screw it up. And there's a process, which we're going to cover, of how to get better at it. The problem, though, is that what you're really doing is developing your skill set. This exact passage, sure, that's a goal. I want to learn to play this riff. I want to play this song. That's nice. But the bigger goal is I want to be a better guitarist, and I want to have a skill set that allows me to play that song and every other song. Okay. And we can use each song to help build that skill set. But here's the problem. You start building, you start looking at this exact sequence of notes. It takes too much repetition on that sequence of notes. If it's a high level challenge, it takes so much repetition, you never get there. You never really master it directly, because, you hit it. Well, what you end up doing, if you're playing at let's say 60% speed, maybe that's where your level is, versus, I'm playing the lick, but it's only 60 or 70% speed. Well, that's okay, building your bass at that level, but you'll probably never be able to hit 100 if you just keep using that approach. Because what happens is that you sink into muscle memory the motions you're doing. So you're putting into muscle memory the motions at 60 or 70% of the full thing. And that builds the wall because the motions that you're using to do it at 60% aren't exactly the same as what you're going to need to do it at 100%. So you get good at what you practice, and you don't, you end up putting barriers in front of you because you build this muscle memory. And at some point, it's worse than that, because at some point, your brain starts to tune out. You're no longer aware of the nuances. You can't improve it because you burned out on it. So every exact sequence of notes actually has a limited lifespan. And the longer you play it, it's a diminishing return. People say, give me a good exercise for this or that. Well, I can give you a good exercise, but after you played the thing for a year, it's probably no longer a good exercise for you. You need something else, which is why you need to understand the principles at work, and then you create your own variations that hit the element of technique you need, so that you can play that lick and anything else like it, anything that uses its mechanics. That's why I use the word mechanics, because there are, each different mechanic is really a different skill, and we're kind of assembling them all. Anyway, I'm getting off on I'm going down a rabbit hole. Let's come back. Are the skulls in the background vanquished foes in crosswords like guitar duos? Yes, may he rest in peace. And he's wearing my microfiber cloth that I'm supposed to use to wipe the strings down. But honestly, I don't really sweat, so I'm kind of weird that way. So it just sits here on his head. And while I'm at it, those of you who recognize the reference will know this. This was out of one of the examples in Total Picking Control, my prop. Enough said. Always need a few of those things up here. Okay. Let's see, where were we? Unrolled. Okay. There's a bullet point. It did that. It did that. It did that. Does it make sense to go with speed mastery along with Total Picking Control? Because I struggle with tempo in Total Picking Control. Speed. By speed mastery, are you talking about like the original speed mechanics for lead guitar? Speed. The original is very exercise intensive. I intended speed mechanics to be a supplement, and to be a supplement for an intermediate, advancing, or advanced guitarist. It's not a beginner book. But I say supplement because I expect you already had the base. And that's what I'm going to talk about in this masterclass, is these two they're complementary practice approaches, and you need both. Speed mechanics is heavy on the breakdown approach. By itself, it's not enough. You need to drill these things in, application. Like I said, because it's exercise intense, well, it helps people build their technique to a point. But after a while, those exercises start to lose their value because you're just playing the same thing. And that, the way our nervous systems work, eventually we kind of tune out, and we stop making so much progress. So yes, they are helpful. There are things in the original Speed Mechanics for Lead Guitar book that we can jump to. Like if I'm working with somebody in Total Picking Control, I can say, hey, you remember this? Here's the connection to what we're doing here, and then work on that exercises, and then the key, understand the point behind it, and make up 5 more versions of your own, or even improvised variations on this exercise. That's where you find the real value at nailing this stuff down. Can we expect in heavy lead guitar, whenever it is out, to have similar structure as yes, popular songs? Yeah, that's exactly. I mean, I've already picked lots of them. Started with lots of spreadsheets of songs and trying to figure out which songs can go where. It's tough because, as you can probably imagine, songs are not written to be at a graded level. unless they're the songs I wrote for that purpose. But generally speaking, that we have to, same thing with solos. It's kind of hard to find solos that constrain themselves to this level, this level, this level. But I have picked a lot, and it will be a similar structure. I might not have 10 per level because maybe I don't have enough at lower levels, but we'll definitely have some application like that. Explain the method in speed mechanics to build speed for the right hand. Well, we're going in detail in the live masterclass starting in an hour. That's my best answer. Because this is a really big subject. So the only thing I can do here is give you a very broad overview, but basically it's this. Some of you might have heard this before. I was going to save this for talking in the masterclass. I'll probably hit it there again, but here it is. The head-on approach, is this sequence of notes. Slow it down, make it fluent, speed it up gradually. Okay, stick with that exact sequence of notes. Speed mechanics approach says, I don't care about the notes. I care about the motions. So what I did, like the infamous exercise 25 on the right hand, we jump past the range. See, there's ranges of playing. If you do, let's say 16th notes, 60 to 80 beats per minute, I call that slow. And then 80 to 100, let's say that's moderately slow. 100 to 120 is moderate. 120 to 140, we can call that fast. Let's call it moderately fast. Then 140 to 160 is fast. 160 plus, I call that the shred zone. So you need a different technique. It's walking and running. At some point, you have to start jogging, and then you have to run. And these are different motions. So what speed mechanics does is say, let's take all these motions and break them down. Instead of let's coalesce all of them, that's the normal head-on approach. Let's take all the motions and pull them all together and then do it right, build our base and build up. This approach says, well, that doesn't work because we hit these brick walls to build speed. So what we have to do is we have to go fast, so we're doing the right motion, but we can't do it. So we have to take the example and break it apart into its components. And that's what the speed mechanics approach is. And that's what the right hand is doing in speed mechanics. Step one, you got to get the right motion. And where can you do the right motion when you can't play that fast? Well, you can only make the motion if you do tremolo picking, if you play fast on one string. Obviously, before you can play across string transitions and alternate picking and all that stuff, you have to be able to do it on one string. If you can't do it on one string, you're not going to do it on two strings because that's even harder, right? So you need to get your base built there of fast picking motion, not just fast motion, but fast rhythmically controlled motion. And that's what speed mechanics does in exercise 25. I say, hey, you jump up to a fast speed and let's time it. And let's time the left hand with pulse and the right hand, because that's training your right hand where pulse is. Da 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 da. You're doing these sets of 4. Down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. So that you kind of lean into it and you get pulse and you can express that accent through the pick. Well, now you have rhythmic control of your pick. And you can do it on one string. If you can get that to sound good, you get the right pick travel. It can't be too big where you can't play fast. It can't be too small or you don't clear the string and it sounds terrible. It's got to be just the right amount, and you got to turn that into a muscle memory so you don't have to think about it. And when that's muscle memory, then we can start to introduce more synchronization with the left hand, still staying on string. Once you get that, then you can start to say, hey, let's look at the string transitions. And there are 4. There's leading to the next string with the downstroke. There's leading to the next string. Let me say it like this. There's only 4. That's the good news. The bad news is that as these are applied differently in different patterns, there's actually more than 4 ultimately, but basically there's 4. So if I'm here on string 3, okay, and I want to go string 3, 2. So I'm on 3 and then 2. As I make that leap, I lead with a downstroke. Or I could go from string 3 to 4. If I do 3 and then I can jump to 4, leading with the downstroke again. So those are 2 of the 4 moves. And then the other 2 are leading with an upstroke in each direction. And then it feels different to roll onto the next string and continue. It feels different to go back and forth. You know, that's where it gets a little bit more convoluted. But you have to start with those 4 motions. And to do those 4 motions right, you kind of need to pay attention to pick slanting, which is something I've never really talked about much. And I'm going to cover it here. The reason I haven't talked about it much is because pick slanting is, my view of it is, it's important to understand its implications. And that's what Troy Grady did a really valuable job of creating this insight and labeling and naming this, the physicality of it. That's really useful to know. Where we diverge a bit is what does it mean and how do you apply it? Because my view of the pick slant is, if you have the wrong slant, it's going to make motions very, very difficult. But here's the other problem. If you say, okay, the answer is pick slanting, and you lean into it and you say, okay, slant the pick, let's do this. Oh, it makes this mechanic easier. Here's the problem. It makes the opposing mechanics harder. The more you slant, the more it lopsides you toward, this is easy, but it makes this one harder. And if you do it in an extreme way, it makes the opposite motion impossible. So now we come back to an issue of what your goal is. And my goal was never, okay, I want to master one motion so that I can apply that motion repeatedly and I can build monstrous licks out of it that are very impressive. And it's pretty easy to do that. Okay, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, but that wasn't my goal. See, my goal was I wanted to play the music in my head without any interference, so I could play any mechanics. So obviously, my interpretation of what you do with that information is very different. My goal is, hey, we minimize pick slanting. I play with almost no slant. And that's a process, though, of refinement, because the less you have, the more difficult, the more regular your pick motion has to be in order to get there. But it gives me the ability to, with very, very slight shifts, to play seamlessly through any mechanic. Anyway, I'll be talking about all that stuff. Okay, 11 o'clock. Well, I'd like to be wrapping up here, but I'm going to hit just a couple more. Let's see here. Do you have a rough timeline from the rest of fretboard mastery will drop? I'm interested in the chord changes part of it. Yes, I am. So here's what happened. I was making fantastic progress on it. And then this live event came up and I said, okay, I want to play. I want to play again. So I basically put all that on hold for like a month and spent all my time practicing. And now I'm coming back to it and I'm going back to putting the videos up. My goal is to get one up every week. I don't want to shortchange each part in the pattern, but like the one that's on the table right now that I'll get up this coming week, it's the 5th one in step 4. It's going to use a 3-chord progression, and we're gonna keep developing that. Everything, the rest of them through step 4 are going to happen pretty quick because they're already partially done. Step 5 is going to come back and then lay the chords together with pentatonics, and we're going to start integrating more licks with, we did a little of that, but we're going to do a lot more, and look at the major minor clash and those sorts of things. So it's not going to like drop like, here's 50 videos. It's going to be, I'm going to be rolling them out every week. It's going to turn into a regular thing. Can you talk more about total picking control and the techniques it touches on? Do you talk about pick slanting in the book? Um, not not much. I'm going to talk about that in detail in this live masterclass series that's coming up here in an hour. So go there for that. Total picking control breaks everything apart like the original speed mechanics, but it goes into much finer details. I do show, there's video, so I'm showing what I'm doing, and I am showing quite a bit of the picking angles. But of course, that's different. I don't have just one technique. Okay, it depends on what I'm playing. I use all different kinds of pick slants. And you can, what you really need to do is just understand the lay of the land and what the principles are, and notice how it's impacting your playing. So I guess yes and no is the direct answer. Well, I can tell you, what does it touch on? It is application. So it's a lot of music. And that's going to drill the techniques into muscle memory for you, as opposed to just a bunch of exercises, which again have a limited lifespan. Music takes you much, much further. So there's 60 songs in the thing, and solos and whatnot. And they are written as studies. So they focus on the point that I was trying to make. So if you're in, well, I'll say this too, there's 6 sections. So there's 3 and 3. The first 3 are geared toward getting the base built. Because if you don't build the right base, you can play fast, but it sounds like crap. Okay. And it's not useful. You don't master music that way. So I went and I did the bass stuff, and that's more than a bass. There's challenges in there. Okay. But they're not, crazy fast stuff. Okay. I mean, it's fast, but it's up to that 140-ish kind of, 16th. So maybe there's a bit that goes a little past that, but it's mostly bottom up kind of approaches. There's variations. I talk about the top out developmental practice, which I've kind of, it harkens back to stuff that was in the original speed mechanics, but it takes it a few steps further. And then here's the key though. Once the base is built in steps 1 through 3, steps 4, 5, 6, take that base and then they take off with it. And that's where you get high speed rhythmic control, high speed cross string picking mechanics, and economy picking and sweep picking, so you can do anything. So that's the layout of that. Let's see, what lost Spinal Tap. Yes, he got it. that is, when I first saw the movie Spinal Tap, I was like, it's kind of dumb, and but you know what? The older I get, the funnier it gets. It's becoming my favorite movie. It's the one I'm quoting all the time. It's just coming out. I got picking control. Total picking control is more advanced than rhythm guitar 1 and 2 and lead 1 and 2. Absolutely. It goes beyond anything that, it goes beyond. I'll just put it that way. And rhythm 1 and 2, I would say that if you're in like rhythm guitar volume 1, metal rhythm guitar 1, total picking control is like, well, you can read it and you can understand the principles and start to apply them. That's going to be useful. And you'll even be able to play the first few songs. But your pacing curve is going to be very steep. You're not going to be like, after 10 weeks on song 10, you're going to probably get stuck around song 4. And that's okay, because you have to build your technique platform up higher to be able to keep moving forward in total picking control, because it gets so advanced so quickly. So what you want to do is you can use it and benefit it, but don't use it as a core curriculum. Use it as a supplement, to help you develop better skills that you apply as you move through like rhythm book 2, for example. And then used in that way, you're not going to be hitting brick walls, and because that's frustrating, you know, it's not useful to do that. Focal dystonia. After a long journey, Professor Joachim Fabre helped me. I solved a great part of the tech aspects. Okay, well, sorry to hear about that. I'm not sure what focal dystonia is, actually. I haven't seen that term before. So a piece of advice into music. Great to see you. Piece of advice. What can I give you a piece of advice? Well, I have a lot of advice. Generally speaking, I kind of need to target it to something like the master class, maybe. I think the master class is kick ass. I'm happy to do it. It's really good. Doug Mark's metal method, 80s. Yep. Yeah. Troy Grady's original discovery was to change between slants depending on what change you were making. He's moved on from that to other ways to overcome the disadvantaged string change. Cool. I don't know that much about it. Here's in a nutshell what happened, what I know. I didn't go into those details because when I finished Speed Mechanics for lead guitar, I could play it, and I was kind of burned down on technique, and I was done, you know. And in the 2000s, it was even worse because in the 2000s, I wasn't doing teaching really at all. I was in a band and I was pushing that, and I was working with Tremonti, and you know, that's a whole nother thing. And that's where my focus was. And that's when I know Troy Grady at that point reached out to me. And I was like, well, that's nice, but I'm not into it. You know, I'm not great. And the other thing about it that kind of turned me off originally was it's okay to be excited about your discovery, you know, and it is. It's a significant, he has made a big contribution. Put that out there. And I appreciate that, especially now that I'm kind of coming back and returning to the instructional world. But it was kind of presented like this is the be all end all, you know, just do this and you'll succeed. And of course, that hit me as not true at all because, you know, the application was to a different purpose. But I've heard other people say stuff like this. Basically, yes, I agree. To overcome the disadvantaged string change, yes. And that's where I've been the whole time. And that's why I wasn't too into it, because when he first came out with it, he had kind of taken it in a different direction. And so I'm happy to hear that. That's good stuff then. If that's true, then I'm guessing a lot of the stuff that I just put down in this Master Mechanics is probably going to dovetail very well with the kind of stuff that he's talking about now. Wouldn't surprise me a bit. A lot of gypsy jazz players hold picks with zero slant. Yeah. Yeah, so it's really, and I guess Troy Grady calls it the double escape. I would tweak it a little differently though, because when you're on one string picking fast, there's no escape. It's trapped on both sides. And it becomes a double escape because of actually the wrist twist. The wrist motion is what enables it to seamlessly escape around either way. If it's too big, see, I'm more about the process. You need to know something about these facts, yes, but where the rubber meets the road is let's take these facts and let's apply them. And the difference between success and failure, you can have all the facts and still fail. The difference between success and failure is how do you implement those facts, you know? And the difference between success and failure can be very subtle, you know, a very subtle difference. So those are the differences I'll be talking about. Greetings from Turkey, Istanbul. I've been your follower and fan for 30 years. I own all your books and recently got Total Picking Control. Awesome. I recognize that name, Dr. Tolga Demir. Hello to Turkey and everybody there. Masterpiece. Oh, you like total peak and control. Cool. Taking it slow, digesting everything carefully. The result can, I can't see more of that. I can only see for some reason. Oh, it's the next one. Having trouble, technical problems, clicking buttons because I'm old. Inspiration, progress, and the desire to practice every day after work. Cool. Books are classic. Well, thank you very much. Well, I hope that some of what we talked about was helpful. And I'll tell you, it was helpful for me to kind of just jump in here with both feet and play, even if it didn't sound very good. You know, it's a work in progress. Anyway, I will. Oh, got another from Istanbul. Awesome. Well, you're very welcome. And yeah, we went over a little bit, but happy to do it. I'm glad you guys came, and I'm going to try to do, I'll be doing some more of these, I don't know, once every couple months, probably. I'll be more inclined to do more if I get my sound really working so that it sounds good to me and to you. To me, sound and tone is everything. And part of tone is mix, because the guitar is part of this bigger picture. And if it sounds good, it inspires me, and then I just fall into it, And if it sounds off, I can't play well. And so, yeah, I got to find it. And so I'm working at it, and being able to do it with a good sound at this and this kind of live stuff is kind of difficult. So, all right. I hope that I see you guys, some of you anyway, if you're into any of it, in the class. And it will, by the way, it'll be recorded on Zoom, and then it'll be available for playback. So you can even join it after. You just won't be able to participate in the thing live if you do it later, but you get all the materials. And like I said, I think it's going to go well. And if it does, if the format works, then we're going to probably, I'm thinking once a month. So thank you very much, and I will see you next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.